We have another panel of inspiring and intelligent women who are defining success in brand new ways. I was tempted to keep them backstage all to myself. Social entrepreneurship, identify the invisible, do the impossible. Please join me in welcoming Monica Matha, investor and author of The Entrepreneurial Instinct and ambassador for Project Hope. Elizabeth Schaefer-Brown, founder of Maiden Nation and Uncommon Union. Laura Galinsky, author and senior vice president at Echoing Green. And Maxine Beda, co-founder of Zadie.com.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. My name is Elizabeth Schaefer-Brown, and I run an agency called Uncommon Union, and we are all about truth in advertising. So you better watch what you guys do. Which is why I'm so excited to speak to these three social entrepreneurs today who are not afraid to speak their mind, each in very different ways. Before I begin, I really want to thank Claudia and the 92nd Street Y for providing us with this platform to talk about social entrepreneurship. 15 years ago, I graduated from Barnard College, the women's college connected to Columbia University. And at our graduation, the commencement speaker told us that if we wanted to lead a happy life and feel successful, we really had to choose between either raising a family or doing our career. You had to choose between one or the other, and to discover which you were most passionate about. So the only thing I agreed with her that day was that you should follow your passion. I went on to start my own business and become an entrepreneur, which allowed me to both own and structure my own time and feel like I could succeed at both, at having a family and having a career. I then became extremely attracted to social entrepreneurship because I felt like social entrepreneurship really addressed the conflict between career and community and family, and that new business models were really being created that would address both. So that leads me to my first question for each of the panelists. Do you think women are better positioned and more inclined to lead the social enterprise?
You want me to start?
Yeah.
Okay, great. First of all, thank you so much for inviting me to be part of this, and it's great to connect with all of you. It's really quite an honor. So interestingly enough, that's a great provocative first question. We, in the social entrepreneurship sector, I help run an organization called Echoing Green, which seeds social change organizations around the world. Our mission statement is to unleash next generation talent to solve the world's biggest problems. And we've been around for, we were started by a bunch of guys, actually, in the private equity sector who wanted to do what they did each and every day, but apply it towards social change. And so for the past 25 years, we have been able to launch the paths of over 600 social entrepreneurs. And it's about 50% women and 50% men, but actually something really interesting happened along the way, and that was that the number of women who were doing well in our selection process actually started to tank. Over time. The more and more the social entrepreneurship sector grew, blossomed, was becoming more of a household name, and you can get your major in social entrepreneurship, and our process became more and more competitive, women were not faring as well. And it got to the point where the president of Echoing Green and I looked at each other. We're a women-run organization, and we had about 34% women who were becoming our fellows, right? It was about 2% of people made it. So it's a highly competitive process to receive seed funding and support to launch your social venture. And we were saying, this is not okay. And so we started to invest in looking at what was going on. And it turned out that the number of women the percentage going down actually correlated with the number of for-profits in our process. So we've always been open to nonprofits and for-profits. It didn't matter your status, right? Your IRS code. But the more and more people were launching for-profits, they were being launched by men, mostly, the social missioned for-profits, and they were doing really well in our selection process, often because they were going to get their MBA and they were going through a lot of the business plan competitions, and they were doing well, and women's numbers were going down. So we actually started to invest more in that and started a mentoring program for women in our process. The short answer is yes, I think women can do particularly well navigating, as you were talking before about work and family life and navigating lots of responsibility, doing more with less often, and are kind of fierce in that process. But we need as a sector to make sure that we're keeping our eye on some of the numbers, especially I think Equine Green was very open about the disappointment we were having, and we're very public about it. We launched a blog post and we got a lot of attention, and we created a whole initiative to the point where this year, actually, we're about to announce our 2014 fellows, and 53% of them are women. So that's really exciting for us, considering just 2 years ago it was 33%. But it takes a lot of energy and attention. You have to be open and watchful of it. But absolutely, of course, I think women can do particularly well running social ventures.
Monica?
So I believe that women are equally suited with men to social enterprise, and I say that mostly because if you believe that women are more suited to start social enterprise, then the converse of that is men are more suited to do the important maybe make the world turns around types of roles, which I completely reject. So I think that necessity is the mother of invention, and you're seeing so many women turn to entrepreneurship and self-employment for the reasons that you mentioned, right, because they're not getting the flexibility, they're having that impossible time managing the work-life balance. And I think the greatest challenge we face is encouraging women to really scale, because what we're seeing, at least overall in the entrepreneurship space, whether it's social entrepreneurship or just starting a business where you have a product and you're selling it, women are starting businesses with greater frequency than men, but those businesses are not scaling. Women are more hesitant to take capital to grow their business. They're more hesitant to seek bank loans. They're more hesitant to seek equity capital. And there is an impact. There's an impact to society at large, because if these women were more willing to take risks, we would have more jobs. And that's a big problem for this country right now where it stands. You've got 10 million people unemployed, 7.8 million people who would like to work more. They're working part-time, but would like more work. I think one of the greatest things we could do to better our society today is to encourage more people to start businesses and employ others. And inherent within this idea of entrepreneurship is a social good. Because when you employ someone, you allow them to fulfill the ability to buy a house, to get married, to raise kids, to send their kids to school. And so women are very much leading the charge in self-employment, but the more we can do to encourage women to take risks, they can lead the charge in actually employing other people.
But what specifically can you recommend that we do to create that encouragement?
With women?
Yeah.
So with women, the biggest issue seems to be, again, scaling. And that scaling is a lack of interest in actually seeking capital. Like, they're not seeking loans as frequently as men. They're not seeking equity capital. Some of that is fear. Some of that is entrenchment, because that society is run by men, and there are fewer opportunities to kind of edge your way to the front. But even just pointing out that, hey, you know what? You're willing to take that initial risk. Why don't you go a step further? Why don't you start growing that business and working on things like your credit score, so you are better positioned to go out and get capital? That's actually a very low-hanging fruit issue, where women just don't, on paper, look as good as a man because they've been out of the workforce. Like, they have more blips in their resume than men. And also with credit score, there are certain issues with credit that just seem to pop out with women.
So maybe we need even more summits just on this issue.
More financial literacy, more of a focus on understanding that if you truly care about entrepreneurship and you want to be an entrepreneur, well, you better get good at taking risks. That's what entrepreneurs do.
I would say it's really interesting because I'm a Barnard grad myself, and what's really interesting to see is, and then I went back to Columbia for law school, and there was a big chunk of time in between doing those two things. I think what's really has been fascinating for me to see in comparison to what your experience was to mine at undergrad, and then kind of the transition when I went back to grad school, is how much that conversation has really changed. So you were talking about the dynamic where you had to choose between one and the other. And when I was in undergrad, I didn't have that same experience. You know, you could have that career, and it was very encouraging to both have the career and have that family life. But probably back then, there wasn't sort of a resolution as to how you could do both.
Right.
And there was not that sort of honest conversation that we seem to be having now of, well, what does that actually mean? So where do my kids go then if I'm at work? And so there does seem to be this more advancement in conversation. And then kind of transitioning to when I was in law school, and the conversation that was happening on the university campus was all of a sudden social enterprise became this buzzword. And that was so exciting to see, and I would sneak into business school classes as much as I could to be a part of what is this exciting thing called social enterprise. And so I guess I'm with you, Monica, on seeing that men and women have both equal capacity in doing that, because I'm fearful of ever seeing the other side. I mean, we can do both. I think we have to have a really honest conversation about kind of what it means to have work-life balance, and I think the interesting conversation now is about not having work-life balance, but work-life integration, and that's really where social enterprise really becomes so popular, is people are tired of bifurcating their lives and instead want to have careers that mean something. You know, we want to have careers that aren't just about a paycheck, but are reflective of the values that we have, and I think that's why, particularly in our generation, and particularly right now, women and men are so excited about the potential and possibility of social enterprise.
Right. Okay, my next question is for Lara. You've helped connect young people to social goals aligned with their personal and professional interest. And there's data suggesting that millennials are more interesting in this perspective. Do you find this to be true? And are there any specific emerging trends you've found surprising?
Yes, the statistics on millennials, it's such a well-researched generation, and there's so much fascination around the millennial generation, and that's a resounding yes, absolutely. So millennials born in the 80s to early 2000s, about 80 million strong in the United States, so very powerful. And so when in 2025, when they're about 75% of the workforce, and when they're starting to run companies, the impact of this generation is going to be tremendous. So some of the research shows that they're very civically minded, that they want to integrate their work life and their home life, and that they're very, they're thinking about social impact. They've been raised on volunteerism. In terms of job criteria, they want jobs that give them stability, but they also want jobs that give them meaning. And those are kind of the first two things that they look for. So really amazing opportunities there. What's interesting that I've seen at Echoing Green is that while our organization was back in the day focused on just social entrepreneurship, people who were launching social change organizations, we were continuously approached over and over again for career advice. We were wondering why. It got to the point where I could schedule my entire day around informational interviews, and it's because people were looking at social entrepreneurs as such a great example of someone who has kind of gone after their fullest potential or around their purpose and kind of gone for it, right? There was just real amazing power in their example. So I started meeting with people, and when we had nearly 500,000 Twitter followers, I was like, okay, something's going on here. There's a lot more resonance here. Not all those people want to start organizations, and frankly, they shouldn't. There should be sort of people who really need to start organizations should, but the others should kind of support movements of others to push forward social change. It became what we call Echoing Green, my moment of obligation, where I wanted to investigate, and I saw a really big hole. And the hole is that while there is kind of all this civic mindedness and this interest in integration and impact, we don't learn how to do that, right? From college to career, from kind of thinking about impact and learning the skills to identify one's purpose and to optimize one's impact, it's kind of a big black hole. And so we started thinking about it, looking at research and realizing that there was a big opportunity here. So we started another program called Work on Purpose. I wrote a book called Work on Purpose. And we started to think about how could identifying one's social impact purpose be something that is mainstreamed, right? Normalized as part of one's life. So instead of being asked over and over again, what do you want to do when you grow up, you're actually asked from a very young age, what kind of impact do you want to have? Who do you want to be? And that's been amazing to watch the kind of purpose, social impact purpose field really, really, really blossom. And there's been just tons of research that's just coming up now that shows that identifying one purpose not only can help organize your life, but it can actually help with wellness and health, sleep. I was reading an article 2 days ago about research I knew about in the New York Times that showed that actually having a purpose, and especially a purpose that's larger than oneself, what is often called a noble purpose, can help curb Alzheimer's and help with their cognitive ability. So it's one thing that, a trend that we're seeing. So what I say to you guys is, as you're navigating your life, think about your own moments of obligation. Think about moments when you're really pulled and called and have strong emotion, because those are often cues and clues of something larger that you're connected to that are screaming for you to claim it and to take action and to kind of help organize your life and identify and live out your own purpose.
Thank you. Monica, you argue that everyone has entrepreneurial potential. How is this different than arguing that everyone has potential to be an artist or a scientist? Aren't some people more suited for one thing over the other? And what does this mean for social enterprises?
So an artist, a scientist, an accountant, a lawyer, they can all be entrepreneurs. It's basically the idea of industriousness, the ability to be a Rumpelstiltskin, just to take straw and turn it into gold. Every single person who is sitting here today is good at something. I hope they know what that is, because the minute you realize those special skills that you have, you're just gonna have a much happier life, to your point. And so the idea of being able to take those inherent talents and skills that you have and be able to take calculated risks to make money, that is your birthright. That's just something inherent to all of us. Now, if you learn a little bit about me, you'll find out why I care so much about this issue. My dad was a merchant marine ship's captain, and my mom was an artist, and we lived on a ship when I was little. And we hit this point in my childhood that we couldn't live on the ship and actually the kids get an education. So my dad had to start from scratch. We immigrated here in 1980, and the only job my dad could find was as a ship surveyor, and that was making half of what he made before as a ship's captain. And so he took that job and he slugged away and over time started a business. And it was a small gift shop, and within 30 years, that little gift shop turned into a retail chain, which spawned a manufacturing operation, which led rise to an investment enterprise that owns commercial real estate, a variety of businesses. And no one taught him how to do this. He had no special training. He has no special intelligence. It was his birthright. Every single person has it within them to take a risk. Every single person has it within them to lift up their own life. And so the idea that this is within you has nothing to do with your IQ, but it has a lot to do with your conditioning. If you spend time with other entrepreneurs, data shows you're twice as likely to start a business. If your parents were entrepreneurs, you're also twice as likely to start a business. So there's definitely a conditioning element to this. If we teach people how to take risks, they will take risks. If we show people the rewards of doing that, we will have a society in which we have more entrepreneurs. When we have a society with more entrepreneurs, we're going to create better jobs, we're going to pay people more, and again, that's the kind of world I want to live in. And so to see that from childhood, I just can't help but have that put fingerprints all over how I view the world. And if I can do anything to push that along, that's what I'm trying to do.
Thanks. Maxine, is there a business case for creating sustainable mission-driven companies?
No, just kidding. Absolutely. I think I would actually go even a step beyond that. I would say that any business today is not going to be relevant in 5 years if they don't have a mission behind what they're doing. to me, you know, on kind of a personal level and within the company, within S.H.E, and then within the nonprofit sister organization to S.H.E, the Bootstrap Project, I've been shocked and amazed with the talent that we've been able to attract despite our size. I think that you know, it's been humbling, and I'm just kind of in awe that people who have really stellar careers, who are really senior in the careers that they came from, have been excited and willing to give up a much bigger paycheck to participate in something that they can really feel that they're changing the world. They can really feel that they're on a mission to do something beyond that paycheck. And I think that the companies that are going to succeed in the future are going to have to weave in and find what their mission is, because they won't be relevant. They won't be able to attract the talent, because the talent, as we've already seen, is leaving these really top marquee brands and coming to places like S.H.E and like the Bootstrap Project. And they're also not going to be able to attract the consumer, because I think you were talking about this, Sora. The next generation is seeking not only to work for companies that have a mission, but to buy from companies that have a mission. And so when there is the same product, but one has a mission behind it and the other one doesn't, the millennial generation is going to buy the one that has the mission behind it. And companies, you know, have to kind of understand that next generation and what they're really seeking. You were talking about how we were raised volunteering. We were raised with all of these values, and so to stay relevant in the future, you're going to have that mission, and it's been exciting to be a part of that.
Great, thanks. Since we only have a few minutes, I'm hoping you guys can leave the audience with one piece of advice for people who want to make that switch into social entrepreneurship from what they're currently doing. Curveball.
I'll go with the theme that you started. One of the things that my mom used to tell me when I was younger is fear means go. It's like a thermometer. It's a temperature gauge that lets you know that something's going on, and to pay attention to it. And instead of turning around and walking the other way, actually going right into it, knowing that it's something that's going to stretch you, it's going to allow you to fail, and therefore learn a ton. So I would say fear means go.
So going along with fear means go, the way the brain is wired, the greatest challenge most of us face in our life is actually overcoming fear and loss aversion, because the instinct for any person who faces ambiguity, failure, is to be demotivated. You activate the side of the brain called the loss aversion pathway, and it's the knee-jerk reaction to start playing 20 questions, think about everything that could go wrong, and you think that by strategizing through all of this, you're going to carve your way out of it, and what you're actually doing is pressing all the buttons in your brain that make you stop. And so the key to really overcoming fear, the key to taking risks, is learning fear means go. It's learning how to take action when it is your knee-jerk reaction, to sit there, mull, think, and just ruminate and not do anything at all. And so in your life, you will face all sorts of setbacks, and what's going to allow you to actually to realize that potential, to realize the success, is how you're able to continually, persistently maintain action and stay on that path to success. And that requires you to have a variety of anchors in your life. What are the different things that are going to make you get up every single day when you don't want to? Some of that is going to be personal. Some of that's going to be passion. Some of that's going to be your community. Who are your cheerleaders in your life? And some of that's money. And that's a big problem. People don't save anymore. And one of the big reasons we're not seeing the entrepreneurial spirit that we really should be seeing in this country is people are just not saving. And the money to start a business comes from your savings and the savings of friends and family. So if you want to achieve and realize your potential, identify those anchors. Fear means go, and learn financial literacy, because those are going to be the anchors that propel you to success in your life.
Yeah, on the subject of fear means go, I guess going back to on a personal level, I used to be the most shy person ever, and I'm still fairly shy. I was so shy that in college, before we had Seamless Web, and I had to call to make a pizza order, I was too terrified to call the person because I thought they would judge me if I got the pizza order wrong. So I would actually ask my roommate to make that call. It seems pathetic now, but that's really how insecure I was about how other people would perceive me. And I think there was that turning point where I didn't want to be hindered by that shyness. There was a lot of things on my mind. There was a lot that I wanted to do and to go and to try. And so that fear means go. I just put myself in these situations. I put myself on stage. I put myself there. And it did feel, certainly in the beginning, like you're naked on stage or something. But as you continue to do it and you continue to be comfortable, it's so empowering to see that does change. You're not always going to be terrified. In the beginning, whenever you do something, of course it's a little terrifying. But to kind of know that all the people that are on stage are going to their next step, they've all started from, I think especially for women, this place of fear, this place of, am I going to be judged for doing that? So I'm going to steal from Nike. Just do it. Just go out there, try it. You're your harshest critic, especially for women. And I think if you go out there, you'll prove to yourself that this is something you can do. And having switched from a very risk-averse job like law to what I'm doing now, I would never go back. It's the most thrilling, exciting adventure of my life.
Great. Thank you all so much.